Done? What have we done? The media network is crumbling to shambles after the big debacle, vacation, lose the bed, no more bed in the background, got to get a new desk. This desk is not suitable. It's not a suitable desk. But we're back. Context is Everything Media Network. My name is John Michael Monroy, founder, CEO. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and remember, context is everything. I'm going to get into this reading here. Then I'm going to do a treatment for my hair. Then I'm going to trim my beard. That's none of your business, but you'll notice tomorrow that I've done those things. Except for the treatment of the hair thing. That's not going to be visible to you, but I will look silly for the next 2 hours after this filming occurs. Where we left off yesterday is where I'm picking up today, which was in the city-states discussion of ancient Greece. So talking about polises. Is it polis or polises, the plural? I'm not sure. But I do remember Solon was like the guy, the Greek emperor, who introduced what I believe to be democracy. Don't actually remember. So I'm going to actually do a synopsis for myself right now. So if you're listening for ambient purposes, just continue to listen. If not, maybe you can fast forward a couple of minutes. Athens, a limited democracy. I'm going to skim. Athens was located in Attica, just north of the Peloponnesus. As in many Greek city-states, Athenian government evolved from a monarchy into an aristocracy. Around 700 BC, noble landowners held power to chose chief officials. Nobles judged major cases in court and dominated the assembly. Demands for change. Under the aristocracy, Athenian wealth and power grew, yet discontent spread among ordinary people. Merchants and soldiers resented the power of the nobles. They argued that their service to Athens entitled them to more rights. Foreign artisans who produced many goods that Athens traded abroad were resentful that foreigners were barred from becoming citizens. Farmers, too, demanded change. During hard times, many farmers were forced to sell their land to nobles. A growing number even sold themselves and their families into slavery to pay their debts. As discontent spread, Athens moved slowly towards democracy. Is this shirt too tight? Or government by the people. As you will see, the term had a different meaning for the ancient Greeks than it has for us today. I think it's too tight. Solon's reforms. Solon, a wise, trusted leader, was appointed archon, or chief official in 594 BC. Athenians gave Solon a free hand to make needed reforms. He outlawed debt slavery and freed those who had already been sold into slavery for debt. He opened high offices to more citizens, granted citizenship to some foreigners, and gave the Athenian assembly more say in important decisions. So Solon is good. Solon introduced economic reform as well. He encouraged the export of wine and olive oil. His policy helped merchants and farmers by increasing demand for their products. Although Solon's reforms ensured greater fairness and justice to some, citizenship remained limited, and many positions were only open to wealthy landowners. Widespread and continued unrest led to the rise of tyrants, or people who gained power by force. Tyrants often won support of the merchant class and the poor by imposing reforms to help these groups. Although Greek tyrants often governed well, the word tyrant came to mean a vicious and brutal ruler. That's kind of interesting. I want to actually write some notes. Should I do that right now? I kind of want to keep the talking going. But I think Solon, remembering who Solon is, meaning he is a reformer, not the guy who introduced democracy, but the guy who kind of, he set the plan in motion by being thoughtful and all that about things. I want to note this down. I want to note this down with this pen here. And the thing about tyrants, I think that's interesting to define tyrant as a person who gained power by force. Not necessarily a brutal ruler. Maybe they gained their power by brutal means, but the way that they're defining it in this book, which I find interesting, is they're making the distinction that some tyrants ruled well. And I'm not advocating for tyranny, but I am saying, well, if that's what the word means, that's what the word means. Okay. Solon. What did Solon do? I really don't even know what they're talking about. What did he do? So Solon, a wise, trusted leader, was appointed archon, or chief official. Athens gave free hand to make needed reforms. He outlawed debt slavery. Good to the people are freed slaves and gave more power to citizens and granted citizenship to foreigners. And the definition from 2001 of a tyrant: people who gain power by force. I just find it interesting that they made the distinction that some tyrants were good. It says many tyrants. It says, although tyrants often governed well, very odd. The word tyrant has come to mean vicious and brutal ruler. Okay, later reform. And we're going. Let's see. Later reform. The Athenian tyrant Pisistrastus seized power in 546 BC. He helped farmers by giving them loans and land from nobles. Giving them land and taking land from nobles. So this tyrant is being tyrannical towards the wealthy. Very kind of contradictory to our current model for tyranny, or at least the way we use the word. So the Athenian tyrant Pisistrastius seized power in 546 BC. He helped farmers by giving them loans and land taken from nobles. New building projects gave jobs to the poor. By giving poor citizens a greater voice, he further weakened the aristocracy. In 507, aristocracy. So this is the result of the aristocracy getting too strong. Aristocracy meaning let me get the definition of aristocracy, because I think that we are living in an aristocracy currently. Oh, you know what I mean. Maybe you don't. Aristocracy, or ruled by a land-holding elite. Well, there certainly is a man who land holds a lot, who is an elite. He invented computers or something. Aristocracy. Aristocracy is rule by a land holding elite. And I put the example being the guy that I'm talking about, who is a well-known public figure, and I'm sure that he's a good man. Let's see. New building projects gave jobs to the poor. By giving poor citizens a greater voice, he further weakened the aristocracy. This is Bristastios. In 507 BC, another reformer, Cleisthenes, broadened the role of the ordinary citizen in government. He set up the Council of 500, whose members were chosen by lot from among all citizens. The council prepared laws for the assembly and supervised the day-to-day work of the government. Cleisthenes made the assembly a genuine legislature, or law-making body, that debated laws before deciding to approve or reject them. All male citizens over the age of 30 were members of this assembly. What? All male citizens over the age of 30 were members of this assembly? I guess there weren't a lot of citizens. Council of 500 people? Or is it everyone? Everyone would go, every citizen would go to the assembly hall? Sounds interesting. Maybe worth some deeper digging. Council of 500? Question mark. Who was there? Question mark. Limited rights. This is a further subheading in the Athenian democracy section. By modern standards, Athenian democracy was quite limited. Only male citizens could participate in government, and citizenship was severely restricted. Also, tens of thousands of Athenians were slaves without political rights and personal freedom. In fact, it was the labor of slaves that gave citizens the time to participate in government. Still, Athens gave more people a say in decision-making than did the other ancient civilizations we have studied. Women. Subheading. In Athens, as in the Greek city-states, women had no share in public life. The respected thinker Aristotle saw women as imperfect beings who lacked the ability to reason as well as men. The man is by nature fitter for command than the female, he wrote, just as an older person is superior to a younger, more immature person. In a well-to-do Athenian homes, women lived a secluded existence. There they managed the entire household. They spun and wove, cared for children, and prepared food. Their slaves or children were sent to buy food and fetch water from the public well. Poorer women worked outside the home, tending sheep or working as spinners, weavers, or potters. Education for democracy. Subheading. Unlike girls who received little or no formal education, boys attended school if their families could afford it. Besides learning to read and write, they studied music and memorized poetry. They studied to become skilled public speakers because, as citizens in a democracy, they would have a voice. They would have to voice their views. Oh, interesting. So they'd prepare them for that Council of 500 if they were due to be in that council. They would study their locution so that they could speak clearly if the time came for them to speak, which it would likely in the council at some point. So they'd be prepared to speak when called upon, or when the spirit calls them. Young men received military training and, to keep their bodies healthy, participated in athletic contests. Unlike Sparta, which put military training above all else, Athens encouraged young men to explore many areas of knowledge. Heading, new section. Forces for unity. Strong local ties and independent spirit, and economic rivalry led to fighting among the Greek city-states. Despite these divisions, Greeks shared a common culture. They spoke the same language, honored the same ancient heroes, participated in common festivals, and prayed to the same gods. Religious beliefs, subheading, under Forces for Unity. Like most other ancient people, the Greeks were polytheistic. They believed that the gods lived on Mount Olympus in northern Greece. The most powerful Olympian was Zeus, who presided over the affairs of gods and humans. His children included Aphrodite, goddess of love, and Ares, god of war. His daughter Athena, goddess of wisdom, gave her name to Athens. Greeks honored their gods with temples and festivals. To discover the will of the gods, Greeks consulted with oracles, priests or priestesses, through whom the gods were thought to speak. Although religion was important, some Greek thinkers came to believe that the universe was regulated, not by the will of gods, but by natural laws. View of non-Greeks. This is subheading, final subheading of the section. I gotta figure out what to call it. This is section 2, chapter 5, right? As trade and colonies expanded, the Greeks came in contact with people with different languages and customs. Greeks felt superior to non-Greeks and called them barbaroi. Barbaroi. B-A-R-B-A-R-O-I. Barbaroi. People who did not speak Greek. The English word barbarian comes from this Greek root. These barbarians included such people as the Phoenicians and Egyptians, from whom the Greeks borrowed important ideas and innovations. Still, this sense of uniqueness would help the Greeks face a threat from the mightiest power in the Mediterranean world, the Persian Empire. And that is that, with that section. So, we're going to be talking about the Persian Empire and all that. I have a little connections to today here. This is from the year 2001, remember. Olympic Games. For every 4 years, in the city-state of Olympia, the Greeks held athletic contests to honor Zeus. Winning athletes, such as wrestlers or discus throwers, would be crowned with a wreath. The Olympic Games helped unify the Greek world. Warring city-states would even call a truce so that people could attend the games. Today, thousands of athletes from around the world compete in the Summer and Winter Olympics. To honor the Greek origins of the games, relay runners carry a torch from Greece to the host city. From Greece? That's bizarre. Is that true? They carry from Greece. You're telling me if they're hosting this Olympics in Atlanta, Georgia, there's somebody on a boat running on a treadmill the whole time. Well, maybe they passed somebody else on another treadmill with the torch in their hand. I hope so, because that is ridiculous, and I like it. So that's a big question. Do they do that? Do they travel from Greece, torch in hand, get on a boat, go across the Atlantic Ocean on a treadmill, passing it off the torch to other people on a treadmill until they arrive in Atlanta port, or whatever the port, probably something like Charleston, South Carolina, and then they run all the way to Georgia, Atlanta, where they light the thing. But I like the idea of the treadmills. A lot of dilly-dallying, a lot of talking nonsense here. Thank you for bearing with me. This is John Michael at Context is Everything Media Network, founder and CEO, here on The Ambient Classroom, episode 24.